Elliot Walker was a mechanic, and that's all he ever wanted to be. He had no ambitions beyond fixing engines and tinkering with starships. He lived a quiet life aboard the Mariner, a civilian star freighter that traveled from system to system, carrying supplies between colonies in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Life in space wasn't easy, but it was simple. He liked it that way. He had no interest in politics or galactic wars. Those things always seemed so far away, nothing more than stories shared in the quiet hours when the ship's crew gathered in the common room. The journey was uneventful, until it wasn't. It was a routine checkup on a far-off moon that would change Elliot's life forever. The ship's captain had given him the task of inspecting the engines of a nearby shuttle that had been grounded by a malfunction. Nothing out of the ordinary. Elliot had done this 100 times. The moon was desolate, with only a few abandoned structures standing as silent reminders of a long-forgotten mining colony.
There were no signs of life, no sign of danger, just an old piece of space rock.
That's when he saw it. A massive, dark shape loomed against the starry sky, hidden from view until he was almost on top of it. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. A ship, or at least what seemed to be one, but so much larger than anything a human civilization could build. Its surface was like a patchwork of strange metals and organic material, shifting as if it were alive. Elliot stopped in his tracks, his heart pounding in his chest. There was something almost sentient about it, as if the ship was watching him. He shouldn't have approached, he knew that. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, but curiosity pushed him forward. After all, what was the worst that could happen? He was alone out here, with only his tools and the shuttle to keep him company. Elliot's boots crunched against the gravel as he made his way toward the entrance, the giant ship's exterior looming over him like a dark shadow. He took a deep breath and pressed a button on his wrist communicator.
"This is Elliot Walker. I found something unusual."
"It's a ship, but not like anything I've ever seen before. I'm going in to investigate."
He got no response. Not that he expected one.
This wasn't the first time he'd stumbled upon something strange. Still, something about this was different. He could feel it in his bones. He reached the entrance, a large opening that seemed to form just for him as he approached. The door opened silently, like it had been waiting for him. The air inside was cool, but there was something off. The walls hummed with a strange energy, almost like a heartbeat. Elliot felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He stepped inside, taking in the dimly lit interior. The walls appeared to pulse with a faint glow, and strange markings covered the surfaces, symbols he couldn't begin to understand. But it wasn't the markings that caught his attention. It was the figure standing in the center of the room, a woman. Or at least, she looked like one. She was tall, her features sharp and elegant, but there was something undeniably alien about her. Her skin shimmered with a faint iridescent sheen, and her eyes, when they met his, were like pools of darkness, deep and unknowable. Her presence filled the room, and for a moment, Elliot couldn't move. She was beautiful in a way that was almost otherworldly, but there was a power about her, a force that seemed to draw him in.
"Who are you?" Elliot finally managed to say, his voice unsteady. He didn't know what else to say.
She was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. The woman's lips curled into a smile. It was cold, knowing. "I am Kara Lith," she said, her voice smooth, almost melodic.
"And you, Elliot Walker,
are my husband."
Elliot blinked, his mind struggling to process her words. What? No. There must be some mistake.
"No mistake," Karalith replied. "The Galactic contract has been signed."
"We are bonded, as the contract demands." Elliot's head spun. He took a step back, then another. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not your husband. I don't even know you.
The woman's expression didn't change. She seemed perfectly calm, as though she expected him to react this way. It is not a question of your understanding, Elliot.
It is a matter of the law. The galactic contract is binding, and you have been chosen.
Chosen for what? Elliot demanded, feeling the weight of panic rise in his chest. Carlith's gaze seemed to pierce through him. For union, for alliance, for the future of our people. The words made no sense. None of this made sense. Elliot took another step back, his mind racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. He had stumbled onto a ship unlike anything he'd ever seen, and now this woman, this alien, was telling him that they were married by some galactic law he had never heard of. His communicator buzzed in his pocket, and he snatched it out in desperation.
Captain, he said, his voice trembling. Captain, you need to help me.
There's something wrong here. This woman, this alien, she says I'm her husband.
I didn't agree to this.
But the communicator remained silent, no response. Elliot's heart sank. The captain wasn't responding. No one was. He looked back at Carlith, who was standing still, watching him with those black eyes that seemed to see straight through him. This is a mistake, Elliot repeated, more to himself than to her. Carlida took a step toward him, her movements smooth and graceful. It is no mistake, Elliot Walker. The galactic contract has been signed, and there is no turning back.
The words sent a shiver through him.
What did she mean by that? What was this galactic contract she spoke of? You're part of something far bigger than yourself now, Carlith continued, her voice soft but carrying the weight of finality. This contract binds not just us, but our fates. Your role is not one of choice. It is one of destiny. Elliot's mind raced. He couldn't think clearly. He was alone, stuck in the middle of a galactic web he didn't understand. This was madness. How could a contract like this even exist? And why him? Why had they chosen him? He needed answers. But every time he asked, the alien simply stared at him, calm and unmoving, as if waiting for him to accept the inevitable. He felt trapped, helpless, like a pawn in a game he didn't even know existed.
We will begin your training shortly, Carolette said, her words final. You will learn your place in this galaxy, Elliot Walker.
And you will fulfill your role in the contract. Elliot felt a surge of frustration and anger. He didn't want this. He didn't want any part of it. He wasn't some hero, some chosen one. He was just a mechanic, a simple man with a simple job. And now his life had been turned upside down by forces beyond his understanding. But there was no way out, no escape. He was her husband now, bound by a contract he had never signed, destined to play a part in a galactic drama he didn't understand. And in that moment, Elliot realized he might never be the same again. Elliot sat on the cold metal bench inside the massive ship, his mind spinning from everything that had happened in the past few hours. Carolith's words echoed in his head, each one a reminder of how little control he had over his own life now.
You are my husband now, she had said.
The galactic contract has been signed. He couldn't stop thinking about those words. He wasn't just on some strange alien ship. He wasn't just a mechanic who had wandered into something he didn't understand. No, he was caught in something far bigger. Something that felt like a trap. A trap that didn't just have walls. No, this trap had a galaxy-sized network of laws, contracts, and politics that he didn't understand. Sitting there, feeling completely alone, Elliot thought back to the moment when Carlith had first told him that he was now her husband. He remembered the cold shock that had run through him, how he had tried to argue, tried to escape, but it didn't matter. She was calm, confident, and didn't flinch once when he resisted. He could still feel the strange pull of her presence, even now. There was something magnetic about her, something that was impossible to ignore. But that didn't change the fact that he had never agreed to any of this. He wasn't prepared to marry an alien. He wasn't prepared to be caught up in whatever this galactic contract was. The door to the room slid open with a soft hiss, and Kara Lith walked in. She moved with purpose, her tall frame cutting through the dim light like a shadow. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, Elliot felt that same heavy feeling settle in his chest. "You are confused," she said, her voice a calm, soothing sound that seemed to put him on edge even more. "I understand." Elliot stood up quickly, his mind still racing.
I'm not confused, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I just don't understand. This contract, this marriage. Why?
Why me? Kara Lith didn't answer right away. She simply looked at him, her gaze steady and unwavering. "You are human," she said finally, her voice a little softer. "And that is why you are here." Elliot frowned, his hands curling into fists at his sides. "That's it? Just because I'm human?" "No," she said, stepping closer, her presence overwhelming in the confined space.
It is because your species holds something unique, something that we need.
"Something that we can't get without you." Elliot stared at her, not understanding. "I don't have anything special. I'm just a mechanic."
I fix ships. I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Kara Lith smiled, a small but knowing smile. "You do not know now, but you will." She paused for a moment, her eyes searching his face. "The technology you carry inside you, it is not of your making. It is something that your people have unknowingly inherited."
Elliot's confusion deepened. What do you mean? I don't understand.
She tilted her head slightly, as if considering how much to explain. "The humans of Earth, and all your colonies across the galaxy, carry a secret, a genetic key, if you will. It is a dormant power, one that we need to unlock. It is the only thing that will allow us to control the ancient technology we seek."
Elliot shook his head, feeling like he was losing his grip on reality.
"So, you want to marry me, force me into this contract, just so you can use me for some genetic key?" Kara Lith's expression didn't change. She wasn't angry, just patient.
It is not that simple. The marriage binds us in a way that makes our connection unbreakable.
"It is the only way to ensure that the key within you can be unlocked. We are bound to one another, Elliot, as husband and wife. And through this bond, you will help us find what we need." Elliot felt a wave of nausea wash over him. The idea that he was some kind of tool, some pawn in their larger game, made him sick.
I don't want to help you, he said, his voice thick with frustration. I didn't sign up for any of this. I'm just a guy who wants to live a normal life. I don't want to be part of whatever twisted plan you've got.
Kara Litt's eyes softened, but there was a hardness beneath it that Elliot couldn't ignore. "I understand your reluctance, but this is bigger than you or me." "This is about survival, for both of us." "Survival?" Elliot repeated, his voice rising. "How is this about survival? You forced me into something I don't want. You're using me!" She stepped back, her posture straightening. "You are wrong. We are not using you."
We are saving you. Without this union, without the unlocking of the power inside you, you and your people, your entire species are at risk.
Elliot didn't understand. He wanted to scream, to shout, to make her understand that none of this was his choice. But deep down, he knew he was stuck. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. This wasn't just some mistake he could walk away from. Whatever Kara Lith said, the galactic contract had already been signed. He was bound to her. He sank back into the chair, feeling the weight of the situation settle over him like a suffocating cloud. He could hear Kara Lith speaking, but the words blurred together. He couldn't focus on them anymore. He couldn't focus on anything. His mind was spinning, trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. Kara Lith left him there, alone, to think. And think he did. Hour after hour, Elliot sat in the dimly lit room, his hands running through his hair, trying to process everything he had learned. He was no longer a simple mechanic. He was a key in a game that stretched across the stars, one he hadn't asked to play. And yet, there was no way out. The hours turned into days. Each day, Kara Lith would return to speak with him, to explain more of what he needed to know. She would explain the importance of the technology they were seeking, and how the power within him could change everything. But Elliot could never fully grasp the enormity of it all. He didn't understand what the ancients had left behind. He didn't understand why they needed him, or what would happen if they couldn't unlock the power inside him. And still, the words of the contract haunted him. It was a bond that tied him to Kara Lith. It was a bond that could not be broken. The strange thing was, despite everything that had happened, despite how much he wanted to escape, there was a part of him that couldn't stop thinking about her. Kara Lith was beautiful in a way that was impossible to ignore, but there was more to her than that. There was something about her that drew him in, something almost magnetic. Even now, when he wanted nothing more than to be as far away from her as possible, part of him wanted to be near her. Part of him wanted to understand her. But it didn't matter. He couldn't get close to her. Now, not really. Not when he felt like a pawn in her game. Elliot knew he had to make a choice. He couldn't live in this constant state of confusion and fear. He couldn't stay here on this alien ship forever. He had to find a way out, no matter what. But how could he escape something as big as the Galactic contract? The answer wasn't easy. It wasn't something Elliot could figure out in a single night, or even in a single week. But one thing was clear to him now. He was no longer just a mechanic. He wasn't just a man trapped on an alien ship. No. He was part of something far bigger. Something that was going to change his life forever. And whether he liked it or not, he had to decide what kind of man he was going to be in this new, dangerous world. Days passed, and with each one, Elliot felt the weight of his situation pressing down on him more and more. He had tried to tell himself that things would get easier, that the shock of everything, the Galactic contract, his supposed marriage to Kara Lith, and his role in whatever cosmic plan she had for him, would eventually fade into the background. But it didn't. It only got worse. Every time he tried to focus on the ship's hum, the steady rhythm of its engine, he would remember the situation he was in, and it would feel like the walls were closing in on him again. Kara Lith seemed to be everywhere. She would appear in his quarters or sometimes just outside, watching him with those unreadable eyes. She was never forceful, never rude. She was calm, almost too calm. She would sit with him for hours, explaining the importance of the bond they shared, and slowly he was beginning to understand the seriousness of the mission they were on. The more he listened, the more it seemed that the fate of the galaxy, his galaxy, rested in his hands. It was hard to believe, but the signs were all there. The technology the Scifi sought, the dormant power that was tied to him, was not some simple artifact. It was the key to unlocking untold power that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. But Elliot wasn't interested in saving the galaxy. He wasn't even interested in understanding the so-called ancient technology. All he wanted was to get back to his simple life. He wanted to fix ships and wander between the stars, never having to worry about alien politics or dangerous missions. He didn't want to be anyone's key. He didn't want to be bound by a contract he didn't sign. Yet here he was, stuck on a ship with a powerful alien woman who seemed to have control over his every move. Kara Lith had given him little choice. As soon as the bond had been sealed, it was as if a door had closed behind him. There were no other options now. The marriage, the union, was real. They were tied together, inextricably, and there was no way to break the contract, even if he didn't want to accept it, even if he didn't understand it. He had no choice but to continue down the path she had set before him. One day, as Elliot sat in the mess hall, picking at his food, Kara Lith walked in. Her presence seemed to fill the room, and for a brief moment, Elliot felt the familiar weight of her gaze. He glanced up, meeting her eyes briefly, before quickly looking away. She came over and sat down across from him.
Elliot, she began, her voice smooth and steady. I know this is difficult for you.
I know you did not choose this, and I understand your reluctance. But I need you to understand something.
Elliot didn't respond at first. He wasn't sure what she wanted from him. She had explained so many times what he was meant to do, but he couldn't bring himself to accept any of it. She continued, not waiting for him to speak.
You are the only one who can help us now. You, and the power that lies within you.
Elliot shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't have any power. I'm just a guy. A mechanic. I don't have whatever it is you're looking for. Karlith's gaze softened, though it still carried that sense of certainty. You may not realize it, but you do. It is inside you, Elliot. The same power that has been dormant in your people for generations. We need you to unlock it.
Elliot ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. I don't even know what you're talking about. Why me?
Why not someone else? You're an alien. There must be someone else you can work with. Karlith leaned forward slightly. It must be you. No one else can do it.
Her words were quiet, but the conviction in her voice made him pause. Something about her tone made him wonder if she truly believed it, or if it was simply something she had been taught to believe.
He met her gaze, but this time, he didn't look away. For the first time, he saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something that looked like doubt. She saw him looking, and for a moment, she hesitated. But then she straightened up, as if pushing aside her moment of vulnerability.
The Scifi do not give up, she said, her voice cold again.
This is our only chance. And it is your chance too, Elliot. You cannot run from it.
Elliot swallowed hard. I'm not running from anything. I just don't want to be a part of whatever game you're playing.
I'm not a hero.
I don't want to fight some war for you. Karlith sat back, her gaze unwavering. This is not about fighting, Elliot.
It is about survival, for both of us.
Your people are at risk, and so are mine. This technology we seek...
It could change everything, but it could also destroy everything. That is why we must be careful, and we need your help to ensure it does not fall into the wrong hands. Elliot wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. His mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts, none of which made sense. Part of him wanted to believe her, to see her as someone who wasn't just using him. But another part of him wanted to shut everything out, to turn away and pretend that none of it was real. Instead, he stood up suddenly, pushing his chair back with a loud scrape.
I can't do this, he said, his voice sharp.
I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to be a part of your plans. I'm not some tool you can use to unlock your precious technology. Karlith watched him with a quiet intensity. She didn't move as he paced back and forth in front of her. Her eyes followed him, calculating, steady. You have no choice, she said softly. The contract is binding, Elliot. There is no turning back. If you refuse to help, the consequences will not only fall on you.
They will fall on your people? Elliot stopped in his tracks, his heart hammering in his chest. What do you mean?
What are you going to do to them? Karlith's expression softened again, but there was no kindness in it.
I will do what is necessary to ensure the survival of the Scifi. You cannot stop me.
But you can help. You can help us prevent the destruction that could come. Her words were simple, but they were enough to make him stop and think. The stakes were higher than he'd ever realized. He had assumed that it was all about him, his life, his freedom. But if what she said was true, if the power inside him was really that important, then maybe there was more at stake than just his own choices. He was torn. He wanted to run, to escape, to forget about the contract and everything that had happened. But what if she was right? What if his refusal to help had consequences he couldn't foresee? What if the whole galaxy really was at risk? Kara Lith stood up, her movements slow and deliberate. I understand your fear. But you must understand, too. I do not ask this because I wish to control you. I ask because I must, for the good of both our peoples. Elliot felt the weight of her words. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if he could trust Kara Lith or the Sylphery, or even himself. But deep down, he knew one thing. He couldn't keep running forever. As Kara Lith turned to leave, she paused at the door. We will begin soon, she said, her voice calm but firm. The process will not be easy, but it must be done. Elliot watched her go, feeling more lost than ever before. He didn't know what his next step would be, but he knew one thing. There was no turning back. He was already too far into this mess. Now, it was a question of survival, his own and everyone else's. Elliot stood in front of the communication console, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. His fingers hovered over the buttons, but he couldn't bring himself to press any of them. The weight of the decision he had to make pressed heavily on his shoulders. He could feel it in his bones, the power he carried inside him, the genetic key that Kara Lith had mentioned. He still didn't fully understand it. It seemed impossible, but everything she had said was slowly starting to make sense. Whether he liked it or not, he was a part of something bigger than himself now. The galaxy was at stake, and it wasn't just his future he had to think about anymore. Are you ready? Kara Lith's voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the soft light of the hallway outside. She was calm, as always, her eyes searching him, waiting for him to respond. Elliot didn't know how to answer. He hadn't been ready for any of this. He had never asked to be in this position, and yet here he was, standing on the edge of a precipice, with no clear way forward. The more Kara Lith had explained, the more he realized the gravity of the situation. The ancient technology the Sylphery were searching for was real, and if it fell into the wrong hands, it could mean the end of everything. He could feel it deep within him. The power was inside him, buried beneath the surface of his mind, and it was just waiting to be unlocked. No, I'm not ready, Elliot finally said, his voice quieter than he intended. But I don't have a choice, do I? Kara Lith didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped into the room, her presence filling the space. She was not like anyone he had ever met. There was a strength in her, a quiet intensity that seemed to command respect. Even though she was technically his wife now, his bondmate, there was still so much about her he didn't understand. But there was something else, something that made him wonder if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as cold and distant as she seemed. No, you don't have a choice, she said softly, her eyes never leaving his. But that doesn't mean you're alone. You are not in this alone. Elliot ran a hand through his hair, trying to clear his head. He had tried to convince himself that this was just a dream, that he could wake up and everything would go back to normal. But he knew it wasn't a dream. Everything that had happened was real. The Galactic contract, the bond between him and Kara Lith, the strange power hidden deep inside him. It was all real. And now, it was time to face whatever came next. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, Elliot admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. How do I unlock this power? How do I help you save the galaxy? Kara Lith's gaze softened, and for the first time, Elliot saw a flicker of empathy in her eyes. You won't do it alone, she said. Together, we will unlock it. Together, we will ensure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. She walked toward him and placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch was firm, but there was something reassuring about it, something that made him feel less like a pawn and more like someone who had a part to play in all this. I know you don't trust me, she continued. I know you didn't choose this, but you will come to see that this is the only way. The only way to save not just the Safari, but your own people as well. Elliot looked at her, her face so close to his now, her presence so undeniable. He wanted to fight it. He wanted to pull away and run, but deep down, he knew he couldn't. He had a role to play, whether he liked it or not. And if what Karolith was saying was true, the power inside him could change everything. He could change everything. With a heavy sigh, Elliot nodded.
All right, I'll do it.
I'll help you. Karolith's expression shifted, her eyes filled with something that almost looked like relief. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile. Thank you, Elliot. The next few hours were a blur. Karolith led him through the ship, showing him the vast and ancient technology hidden within the Sylphari ship. It wasn't just a ship. It was a living, breathing entity. Its walls pulsed with energy, and the air hummed with a strange vibration that seemed to resonate with the power deep inside Elliot. The deeper they went into the ship, the more he could feel the power inside him waking up. It was like a dormant force, lying in wait, ready to burst free. But how to access it? How to unleash it? That was the question. You are close, Karolith said as they entered a large chamber at the heart of the ship. The walls here were covered in ancient symbols and strange alien writings that seemed to glow in the dim light. The air was thick with energy, and Elliot could feel it pulling at him, tugging at the very core of his being.
This is where it all begins.
He stared at the symbols, feeling a mix of awe and fear. What do I need to do? Karolith stepped forward, placing her hands on the wall.
The energy is tied to your genetic key, Elliot. It is inside you, hidden deep within your DNA. All you need to do is unlock it.
She turned to face him, her eyes serious. It won't be easy. The power is raw, untamed. It will try to break you. But if you can control it, if you can harness it, you will be able to unlock the technology we need. Elliot swallowed hard. And if I can't control it? Karolith didn't answer immediately. Her gaze flickered to the glowing symbols on the wall before returning to him. Then we will have to make another choice. A choice I do not want to make. But we do not have the luxury of time. Elliot's heart raced as he stepped closer to the wall. He could feel the energy pulling at him, like a magnet. The power was inside him. It had to be. He just had to unlock it. He closed his eyes, focusing on the feeling deep within him. The power, the force that was waiting to be released. He reached out and placed his hands on the wall, just as Karolith had done. The moment his fingers touched the surface, a surge of energy shot through him. It was like an explosion of light and sound, too overwhelming to comprehend. His body jerked, and his vision blurred. His mind screamed for him to pull away, to run, but he couldn't. He was trapped. The power was inside him, and it was awakening. Pain shot through his chest, a burning sensation that spread through his veins. It was as though his very blood was on fire. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. All he could feel was the power, raw, unfiltered, and dangerous. Elliot! Karolith's voice cut through the haze of pain. She was there, her hands on his shoulders, holding him steady. Focus. Breathe.
You must control it. Elliot tried to focus on her voice, on her presence.
He couldn't let the power consume him. He couldn't let it destroy everything. With every ounce of strength he had, he concentrated, trying to rein in the chaos inside him. Slowly, the pain began to ease, the fire in his blood cooling. He felt the power inside him shift, becoming something more manageable, more controlled. And with that, he could feel it, the ancient technology. He could feel it awakening, just as the power inside him had. The symbols on the wall glowed brighter, pulsing with energy. And then there was a click, a sound that echoed through the chamber. The walls shifted, and the hidden technology was revealed. Elliot stumbled back, gasping for breath, his body trembling from the sheer intensity of the experience. Karlith stepped forward, her eyes alight with something that could only be described as triumph. "You did it, Elliot. You unlocked it." For the first time since all of this had started, Elliot felt something other than fear. He felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with exhaustion. The power inside him was real, and now he had the means to change the future. But with that power came responsibility, and that was something he would have to come to terms with. As he looked at the glowing symbols, now fully revealed, Elliot knew one thing for certain. He couldn't undo what had been done. The contract was real. The bond was real. And now he was part of something much bigger than himself. And there was no turning back.